Post 1. My baby wakes up in the middle of the night, hysterically laughing. On a regular basis. The first few times this happened, my husband and I thought it was the cutest thing. But it happens so frequently. We're becoming concerned. As much as I hate to say it, it's also a little bit creepy. I was fully prepared to wake up to my baby crying in the middle of the night. But Colson almost exclusively laughs. I've asked my parents and friends about this, but they just say what a delightful baby I must have. It just doesn't seem normal. Does anyone else have a child that does this or did this? Should I be concerned? Post 2. My last post received many responses. Some people said my house was haunted and, to be honest, I had that suspicion. Even before it was a nursery, our dog, Champ, has avoided that room. This always struck me as odd because he follows me everywhere. The logical explanation came from a few parents warning me about gelastic seizures. I don't truly believe in ghosts, so I made an appointment with the pediatrician. Initially, the doctor said it's common for infants to laugh in their sleep, and it was just a normal part of development. I had to explain that Colson awakens in fits of laughter and always stares at the nursery closet. This piqued the pediatrician's curiosity, and she agreed to run an EEG. Luckily, it showed normal brainwave activity. This gave me comfort, but we were advised to monitor him for any other signs of seizures. I just want to thank the parents that told me to get him checked, as it's given me some peace of mind. Maybe my friends and family were right, and Colson is just a happy baby. Post 3. It's been a little while since I've posted about Colson. He hasn't shown any signs of epilepsy, and I'm so thankful for that. However, something weird has been happening. Colson is now 2 years old. Our living room has been fully taken over by toys. My husband, Jax, is an amazing father, and he spends hours playing with our son. Their playtime always seems to end the same way. They will be fully engaged in play, and then Colson will stop near the stairs and stare up at his room. Then come the fits of laughter, and sometimes he even waves. This has been happening for months now, and we can't explain it. It just happened again today. Since Colson is starting to talk, my husband finally asked him, "What are you looking at, buddy?" He responded, "The man." The tall man in my room. I overheard this, came out of my office, and shot Jax a look. He immediately went upstairs to check it out, but obviously no one was in our house. I'm officially freaked out and starting to think our house might be haunted. Jax just shrugged it off. Parents. Am I overreacting? Post 4. Again, I received a lot of responses to my last post saying the house haunted. There were also a lot of responses saying it's perfectly normal for children to have an imaginary friend, especially for an only child. I feel a little silly that I'm getting all worked up about it, but this is my first time being a mom. I'm scared of things that I never imagined being afraid of, like electrical outlets, moderately high surfaces, cleaning supplies, and now imaginary friends. Parents also told me not to show any fear with regards to the imaginary friend. He could use that to get a rise out of me or manipulate me. I'll be damned if I let my 2-year-old son manipulate me. I'm doing my best, but this child pulls my heart in a million directions. Just wanted to thank all the parents that put my irrational thoughts at ease. Post 5. Update on the last post. I think I did well today, not revealing my true feelings about my son's imaginary friend. That doesn't mean I'm not feeling strongly about what happened. When Jax was at work, Colson was playing in the living room while I was in the kitchen. Things seemed to be a little too quiet. I went to check on him. He had his stuffed animals arranged in a circle as he sat in the center in a meditative state. I asked him, "What are you doing, sweetie?" But he didn't reply. I walked over, touched his shoulder, and asked again, "Sweetie, what are you doing?" He looked up at me and said, "Mr. Ring told me to do it." Calmly and with a smile on my face. I asked, "Who is Mr. Ring?" Very nonchalantly. He replied, "The man who lives in my room." Okay, so the imaginary friend has a name. Maintaining my composure, I asked, "Yeah, but what are you doing?" He scoffed at me and said, "You wouldn't get it, Cassie." I was not amused with his attitude, and it almost broke my heart when he called me by my first name. I told him, "Please, sweetie, call me Mommy." To that he replied, "You shouldn't have broken the circle, Mommy." I said, "Okay," and had to walk away to maintain face. This little dialogue really freaked me out. I have to ask, does anyone have a 3-year-old that calls them by their first name? Why does my 3-year-old know how to be condescending? What do you think he meant by breaking the circle? Like, is this a game some other children are playing? Post 6. As always, I got a lot of people saying my house is haunted, and my son is interacting with a spirit. Quite frankly, I'm starting to believe this more and more. I do appreciate some of the rational responses I received. To the people who said I am justified in being freaked out. But I don't need to be. Thank you. Some parents said children might address a parent by their first name because they hear others doing it. That makes sense to me and is probably the case. Other people said kids sometimes mimic sarcastic or condescending tones if they hear the parents speaking that way. This also makes sense but isn't the case here. Jax and I always speak very kindly to each other, especially in front of Colson. I know he didn't learn that from us, but I guess he could have picked it up elsewhere. Anyways, I'm feeling a little bit better about things now. I'm not ruling out the possibility of the paranormal anymore. Something just feels off. Am I a bad mom because my son creeps me out now? Post 7. This is a follow-up to my last post from a few months ago. Since then, Colson has regularly talked about and played with his imaginary friend Mr. Ring. A few weeks ago, we were getting ready to go to the park. Colson asked me if Mr. Ring could come. I said sure, but then he asked me to fill a bucket of water. He said it's the only way Mr. Ring can leave the house. Truthfully, I didn't feel like lugging a bucket of water around the park, and I said no. My son proceeded to throw a tantrum. I caved, filled a small bucket of water, and gave it to him. Colson stuck his hand into the water, said some gibberish, and returned to his happy state of being. Here's the problem. Now he wants to take Mr. Ring everywhere we go. Just a bucket of water. Parents, should I be entertaining this? How long do kids normally have imaginary friends for? I really don't want to be stuck carrying a bucket of water around for months or years. Post 8. There has been a development with Colson and Mr. Ring. I don't think the rational parents will be able to justify this one. I'm fully convinced he is communicating with a ghost. A lot of the paranormal parents responded with concern to my last post. They asked what exactly Colson said when he put his hand in the bucket of water. Honestly, I couldn't tell you, and it doesn't matter at this point. He continues to interact with Mr. Ring. He's more interested in his imaginary friend than he is in playing with other children. It is more than concerning to us as parents. When Jax got home from work today, he asked me to come outside. This was unusual, but he had a serious look on his face. He told me he had something to show me and to not freak out. Once outside, Jax handed me a printout of an obituary for a man named Edward Ring. He died 7 years ago at the age of 72. No details were provided about his death. My husband then looked at me and said, He was the previous owner of this house. We are both convinced this is the imaginary friend our son has been interacting with all along. Neither of us knows what to do or where to go from here. For the people who have been saying our house is haunted, what should we do? It doesn't seem like Mr. Ring is a particularly bad spirit. Still, we are both a bit freaked out by this revelation. Post 9. It seems like a lot of people are invested in our lives at this point. I'll try to post more often. Half of you think I'm making this up, or have lost my mind. I can assure you that I'm not making this up. I don't think I'm going crazy. But this entire situation has been a lot to deal with. For the people who do believe, these posts will be more directed at you. For your help and support. By far, the most prominent suggestion we've received is to move. Jax and I discussed this at length. It would be too big of a financial hit. Plus, Mr. Ring doesn't seem to be an angry or malicious spirit. Colson really seems to enjoy his presence. However, it's a little scary to us. Why has he taken such an interest in my son? I just want my baby to have a normal life. The questions I have for the community are as follows. Is there such a thing as a friendly ghost? Should we be entertaining this spirit, or should we be trying to rid it from our house? Will my son outgrow and stop interacting with Mr. Ring on his own? Today, Colson asked if Mr. Ring could join us for dinner. I wanted to say no, but I told him, sure. What do you even feed a ghost? Post 10. I can't fully describe how I'm feeling right now. Actually, I can. I am horrified. While preparing dinner earlier, the knife slipped and Jax cut his finger badly. Colson was in the kitchen, heard him curse, and asked what happened. Jax told him it was nothing, and he just cut his finger. Colson's eyes lit up and he said, "Follow me, Daddy." We had just taught him how to apply band-aids a few weeks ago, thinking he wanted to put a band-aid on Daddy's boo-boo. We followed him, instead of turning into the bathroom where we keep medical supplies. He led us into his room. He then started removing things from his closet. Under the pile of toys was only what I could describe as some kind of makeshift altar. Colson then removed the centerpiece, a small decorative plate, held it out to my husband, and said, "Put your blood here." The most disgusting part is that the plate already had soiled items and blood smeared on it. There were the band-aids from when he skinned his knee and used tampons he must have retrieved from the garbage. Shocked, my husband asked, "Buddy, what is that?" This child replied, "It's a blood plate. See, I already have my blood and Mommy's blood. I just need yours. Touch the plate, Daddy." Jax snatched his hand up and asked what it was for, to which Colson shrugged and said, "It's to help Mr. Ring." I cut in, "Sweetie, we do not keep bloody things in our closet. Do you understand?" I took the plate away from him. It was as if I took away his most prized possession. No, it was like I took fresh meat away from a starving animal. He screamed, thrashed, and clawed at me to get it back. I took the plate downstairs, disposed of the bloody products, rinsed the dried blood away, and then threw away the plate itself. Once I did this, Colson became sullen and retired to his room, closing the door on us. We are at a loss at what to do next. I want to get the house cleansed. Jax thinks it's best we have a priest come out. Does anyone have any advice on how we should proceed, or know anyone that can come to the house to cleanse it? Post 11. To the people saying sometimes children do weird things with bodily fluids all the time and it's not that strange. Off. To the others saying we should get our child professional help. I don't think talking to a shrink is applicable for our situation. Colson has been wary around us for the past week. He seemed less happy and more secretive about his interactions with Mr. Ring. One day, while he was out with Jax, I had someone come to the house that claims to be a psychic medium. Right away, claimed she senses a malicious presence and began to go about the house, lighting different herbs and smoking items, and finally cleanses the house with sage. When she got to Colson's room, she stopped and refused to enter. She said the energy in that room was not something that could be dealt with. She immediately left and wouldn't accept payment. I asked her what we could do, but her only response was, "Get your family out of this house. We have a priest from the local church coming out next week." It doesn't seem like he believes there is a malevolent spirit plaguing us, but he did agree to bless the house. I'll keep everyone updated, but I don't know what we are going to do if he can't help. Post 12. The priest hasn't been out to the house yet. It's getting close to Christmas. So Jax went up to the attic to get our decorations. The attic can only be accessed through a small opening in Colson's closet. After about 30 minutes of pulling decorations, Jax called me into the room. On the floor sat all the familiar items we had collected over the years, along with a wooden chest that I didn't recognize. My husband said it was in the corner of the attic and must have been missed during the cleanout. What was most disturbing were the contents inside the chest. There were stacks of old leather-bound books, pages worn and yellowed from the passage of time, depicting rituals written in a language that I suspect to be German. The chest also contained candles, runes, amulets, and talismans. Wrapped in old newspapers were glass jars with preserved animal fetuses and vials of blood. It's quite clear that the man who lived in this house before us was into something dark. What's less clear is what we should do with these materials. I told Jax not to f*** with it, to put the chest back where he found it. My husband wants to take the chest along with its contents out back and burn it. Can someone who is familiar with occult practices please advise us on the best course of action? On one hand, I don't want to do anything that would anger the spirit that resides in our house. On the other hand, maybe if we destroy these items with fire, he, or it, will go away. I see conflicting information online. Maybe the priest can provide us with guidance. Post 13. The priest's visit was a bit anticlimactic. Father Finnegan came to the house today and, as predicted, didn't take our concerns seriously. Moving from room to room, he said different prayers and sprinkled holy water. Colson was blessed directly, even having holy water sprinkled on him, to which he had no reaction. At this point, I was expecting a scene from The Exorcist, but Colson just politely smiled at the priest during the blessing. It was really cute, and I was reminded of what a sweet boy we have when he isn't interacting with Mr. Ring. Jax and I received a lecture about the difficulties of being first-time parents and how being a part of a community has many benefits. To be honest, I was kind of sold on attending Mass more often. Not because I believe everything the Bible says, but the community aspect of it seems nice. The only thing I didn't like was how dismissive he was about our concerns with Colson's behavior and the items we found in the attic. He brushed it off and simply stated the church would help our son and to just get rid of the unwanted items. The latter part of that advice was very contrary to the responses I received on here. Everyone is agreeing not to burn the wooden chest. Some are giving me very specific instructions on how to dispose of the materials. Others are saying leave them as they are and get out of the house. Again, I'm receiving lots of conflicting information. I'm inclined to leave the chest as it is and keep it tucked away forever in the corner of my attic. Post 14. Yesterday, while I was out with our son, Jax took the wooden chest out back and burned it against my wishes. Colson was not in his bedroom when we discovered it and, for all I know, he has never seen it before. Still, when we arrived home, something about his demeanor changed. It was as if he received information from Mr. Ring that something was very wrong. Now, he hasn't spoken a single word to us. Nothing we do is getting him to break this little grudge he has. I was a bit upset with my husband that he would do that behind my back. But, at the same time, a little part of me wanted to burn that chest too. I just wish it didn't have an impact on our son the way it has. Post 15. It's been nearly 2 years since I've posted. People have reached out asking for updates about my family. Only recently have I felt ready to share the events that occurred following my last post. Colson remained in his room, refusing to acknowledge us or eat for nearly 2 days. We had plans to have him see a therapist the following day. That night woke to movement and the sound of muffled choking coming from my husband's side of the bed. What I saw destroyed my reality and broke me as a person. Through the dim light that trickled in from the hallway, I saw Colson had buried a kitchen knife into Jax's throat. When he noticed I was awake, he quickly withdrew the blade, and blood spewed out of my husband's throat. Then, Colson came for me. I rolled out of the bed and crawled backwards toward the hall, pulling the door shut behind me. Sitting on the floor, I held the door shut. Colson slammed into the door and pulled at the handle like a little monster. He pleaded with me, "Please, Mommy, come back to bed." My screams shook through the house. Sitting there, I screamed for help, screamed for it to stop, screamed for it to not be real. For a moment, I thought I might be having a night terror. Then I felt it. From under the door, my son was sliding the knife blade into my thigh. It was all too real at that point, and I made a break for it. Even with a stab wound to my thigh, I wasn't going to be murdered by a 6-year-old. I made it out of the house with my car keys before he even got down the first flight of stairs. I drove to my sister's and called the police. They swiftly reported to the home, and upon entering, found Colson drawing runes on the walls with Jax's blood. Colson is now in what they call an intensive therapeutic boarding school. He was too young and disturbed to be placed in the juvenile justice system or foster care. I've spent the past 2 years living with my sister, involved in intensive therapy, and attending Mass. I can't acknowledge my true belief that my son was driven to this by a spirit that resided in my house. They allowed this talk for some time after the incident, but they threaten to 302 me now. I'm told I need to come to terms with the reality of the situation. The only thing I question is the quality of the care I provided. Did this happen because I was a bad mom? Should I have gotten him help sooner? One thing I know now that others knew from the start: we should have moved.